Good afternoon and welcome to this special broadcast on matters population. On July 11th is the World Population Day. And when we look into our country, Uganda, majority of our population are young people. In fact, over 75% of our people are 30 and below. These young people have a lot of challenges, but also they have a lot of potential in them. If we can harness their potential, then we can have what they call the demographic dividend. We'll be looking into the issues, challenges, and the opportunities that are before the young people of Uganda as we celebrate the World Population Day that falls on July 11th. Let me introduce my guests this afternoon who are here in the studio. I have, from the National Population Council, I have the Director of Family Health, Dr. Betty Chadondo. Welcome to the show, Dr. Betty.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and good afternoon, viewers.
I also have Mulungi Sanyu Agnes, Miss Young Positive Ambassador. Mulungi Sanyu, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
But we also have people who are joining us by virtual means on Zoom. I have the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi, who is the National Female Youth MP. We have Ms. Nageb Hassan Tegulwa, Executive Director, Restoring and Empowering Communities. We have Tomwine Hosea, the National Representative, Restless Development at the SRHR Alliance Uganda, Nolan Ondoro, peer educator and member Richer Hand Uganda. Those people are joining us virtually on Zoom, and I'll be getting them involved in the discussion. But let me begin with Dr. Betty Chadondo, you from the National Population Council, because we have a theme, and the theme for the symposium is the role of young people in advancing the campaign against child marriage and teenage pregnancy. What is the significance of this theme in the bigger picture of our population and the young people?
Once again, thank you very much, Patrick, and good afternoon, viewers. I just want to relate this theme to what is happening with regard to the population of young people in Uganda today. Some of you already know that Uganda is a very young country. We have predominantly young people. We have young people that are aged below 15 years, comprising 50% of our population. And those that are below 30 years comprise almost 70% of our population. So the significance of this theme relates to this population age structure, which, as Patrick has just mentioned, if we harness and we invest in this young population, we are likely to overcome some of our development challenges, including the one of reducing teenage pregnancy and early marriages. We are also aware that when we focus and support the young people, then they can help us drive this country's Vision 2040, where we aspire as a nation to transform from a peasant to a more developed society. So first and foremost, young people are very, very vulnerable. Reason for this is because they are transiting from being children to being adults. And as they transit, they experience a number of challenges. Some of these are physical, some of them are related to the environment where we are living, with technological advancement. We know, with the hormones that are pushing them to do certain things which they should not be doing, but also with the possibility that they cannot also access information, services that are required for them to transit through this period with a lot of guidance, with a lot of support. Then two, this, I have talked about the technological advancement. There's a lot that is moving with technology. There's a lot that you can get with technology. But this can also drift aspirations of young people away from the aspirations that they would wish to have that would drive development of Uganda. The number three, as the theme clearly states, these young people are vulnerable to a number of challenges. Number one, they are young. As I talked about the hormones, they are experiencing change in hormones, and therefore they are easily, diverted and attracted to things that they would not be engaged in, like early marriages and other sexual reproductive health challenges. But also, Patrick, you are aware that a number of our young children are disadvantaged because of the inequities and disparities we have across the country. Some are able to access the education that they so need. Some are able to access the goods and services they so need. But some of our young people are disadvantaged because they cannot easily access some of these services.
If you can pause it there, Dr. Chadondo, because we have a young person right here,
Yes.
Sanyu Agnes. What unique challenges do you face that perhaps we may not be aware of, and how are you trying to navigate your way through them as a young person in this country?
Thank you so much, the viewers. Good afternoon, all. Well, with the challenges, Dr. Witt, there are so many. You know, so many young people come out to say them out, and some do not. They hesitate and keep quiet because of the fear, and maybe they think they won't be listened to. So what we go through, some are, let me say, stigma and discrimination. Let me say about the young people living with HIV. We are discriminated. We are not seen. You know, when someone gets to know that you're HIV positive, trust me, things will not move well for you. We have teenage pregnancies, we have rape, we have torture, we have early marriages, we are forced into marriages. Then we have poverty because due to being poor, we are forced to do things that we wouldn't have done, let me say,
Very
because I'm broke, I'm going to go and sell my body to make sure I get some little money to keep me around.
So challenges like those, Dr. Chadondo, you talked about to harness their age and get demographic dividend. If we can only invest in them, is Uganda investing in the young people? Are we likely to harness their potential so that we can get what they call the demographic dividend?
I must say the country is trying. The country has come up with a number of different development frameworks. And I already mentioned the overarching framework is the Vision 2040. The Vision 2040 is implemented on a rollout basis every 5 years through the National Development Plan. And I'll just focus my discussion this afternoon on the third National Development Plan, which has ensured that young people are invested in to drive the development of this nation. One, if you look at the National Development Plan, and it is so many programs, I think there are about 18, issues of youth have been very well integrated in most of the different programs, probably not in all, but in most of the different programs of the third National Development Plan. And I'll just give an example of one of these programs is the Human Capital Development. We are looking at youth as an opportunity to drive this nation. The youth keep saying that we are nothing without them. So if we don't embrace them, if we do not invest in them, then this country is going to be nothing. And what has been the National Planning Authority has purposely done is to ensure within the National Development Plan and with the Human Capital Development Plan, issues of young people, whether it is their education, whether it is their livelihoods, whether it is their sexual reproductive health issues, adolescents, youth, and young people are at the top of this agenda. And then two, if you look at how the plan is going to be implemented, one, we have structures that stream from the national level, and I'm glad we have a youth member of parliament on this panel who will tell us more about what parliament is doing. But we also have structures that go down to the lower level. We have the district youth councils, we have we have youth represented at the parish levels, and now the third National Development Plan has brought in an element of the parish development model, which is focusing on where are challenges, what is the challenge, but taking it from what do we want to achieve as a country, what is the result that we want to see. So if the result is ensuring that we want to transform this country and ensure that we have youth driving the development aspirations of Uganda. So how are youth involved? So are they involved? If they are not, how can we integrate all the different aspects of youth into the development plans at lower level, and then these are pushed upwards?
I want to, at this moment, to bring in the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi, who is the National Female Youth Representative. In fact, Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi, your constituency is so big because you represent the entire country, from Kabong to Kisoro, from Nakapiripiri to Bundebujo. I wonder how you're mobilizing the people, or even to be able to pick their views and their aspirations, so that the young people's potential can be harnessed by the National Population Council, by the government, and we can actually have what Dr. Chadondo calls, and her colleagues, the demographic dividend, and not the demographic catastrophe, because that could happen. It appears that we're having communication challenges there, so we are unable to get the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi. I'll be coming back to you if the technology allows. I'm sure it will. But let me come to you, Sanyu, because you are here. Do you think the people in government, all these agencies, the ministries and departments of government, are targeting you, so that, and people like you, so that they can actually harness your potential?
At a lesser extent, they are targeting us for now. Because why I'm saying at a lesser extent? Because we still see the young people looking for jobs. If it was targeting us right now, we would not be suffering, we would not be rioting, we would not be crying out, we would not be here. Like we would have different conversations right now. We would look at how to make our economy better and not look at how we are going to make the youth a better place, you know, to create them in a better place. So I'll still stay at a lesser extent.
You know, what interests me, Dr. Chadondo, is the government's intentions are good.
Yeah.
Youth, you're always telling us what we ought to do. But unfortunately, I wonder whether actually there has been, because the young people need to be skilled. The young people have to have the right education to do with their hands. The young people, you know, you have to shape their values so that in the next 10, 20 years, you have people who have skills, you have people who have taken care of your health, and then you have people who are going to have their jobs, and in that way, then they can support maybe the elderly or support the economy. But if you have not skilled them, if you have not prepared them, then we are going to have a bigger population of people who are not skilled, of people who are not educated, of people whose health is not okay, and then we are just moving from one catastrophe into another. Instead of having a demographic dividend, we can actually get a demographic catastrophe.
Patrick, you're very right. But the responsibility of ensuring that we harness the potential of the young people does not only fall in the docket of government. Number one, these young people come to life through their parents. And parents have a very big responsibility to play to support their children to become the citizens of tomorrow. That is number one. Number two, the young people themselves must take their own responsibility and engage. But also through engaging, they have to be very careful not to be diverted from their aspirations. Number three, in the communities where these young people live, as I've said already, there are certain structures which may not be providing or supporting the young people as they should be. But you know, there are leaders in different capacities. We have religious leaders, we have cultural leaders, and we know some of the challenges that young people face are because of the doctrines they attach to their religion, or it is because of where they hold values around their cultures. So the cultural and religious influence on how young people behave, but also what young people become, has to be addressed. So when we talk about government, we should all think very broadly and comprehensively about the different roles that we can play. Parents, number one, but also this young person should stand up and know what they want, but they should also stand up and represent and participate and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. So if we think that government is going to do everything, this is not going to be possible.
No, back in the day, I'm told in the 60s or early 70s, a graduate at that moment and a graduate today, with all respect, you can see a remarkable difference between people who went to school in the 60s. Probably that was our golden era when it comes to education, because if somebody completed senior 4 and probably they get a job, you could see the maturity in them, the focus in them, and the articulation in them, and the leadership in them. But today, some of these values are missing. And you wonder, is it because in our homes we're not doing much, or something has gone wrong in our schools? So what do we need to do to have a young person of value, a young person of valor, a young person of substance, a young person with leadership ethos, a young person of integrity? Because increasingly, these things, with all respect, Dr. Chadondo, are decreasing in our population.
I agree entirely with you, Patrick. Number one, we also have to look at the population we had so many years ago. The population of this country has been growing. And from my own perspective, unfortunately, the rate at which the population is increasing is not the very best to sustain the goods and services that the country can provide, and even the way we purchase these goods and services. We have a very young population, ladies and gentlemen. Let's appreciate that and accept it. Number one thing that we have to do is to transform this population age structure. Have fewer than, not few, because I don't want to be misunderstood. We need to have a population age structure that is going to support the young people. So if we have more young people who are depending on the few that are able to earn a living and support this big population, that is not going to happen. Because then they will not be in school because they cannot afford the school fees. Even whether we have UPE or universal primary and universal secondary education, not all the children will go to school because there are some other requirements for UPE and USE.
Okay.
So there are a number of children that are missing out of school. Number two, when you think about this young person and how they are feeding, are we feeding our population well? Despite the fact that we are an agroeconomy, we grow the food, we have it, but we don't feed our children that nutritious value of food that they need to grow. So you find our children being stunted. So a stunted child, a hungry child cannot study. UPE and USE are supposed to provide meals for these school-going children. But I'm sure you've heard a number of times, there are children who go to school when the food is being provided. When the food is not there, that portion for that term is expired. They will not be in school at all. So the kind of children and the young people that we are seeing this country producing today is also, goes back to the reproductive life of our women in Uganda. So if only women can embrace family planning and we reduce the total fertility rate for this country and ensure that we are reducing the mortality, the number of women who are dying while giving birth, and we address issue of adolescent sexual reproductive health, including providing family planning for the young people who are sexually active, we are going to make a very big difference.
But there's also an unmet need of the family planning method, the contraceptive method that should be available to women. The women would want to have family planning, but then such services are not available to them. And that goes back to government, Dr. Chadondo.
That goes back to government, I entirely agree. But even where services are available, we don't see the services being embraced.
I understand the technology has been worked on, so now we want to get in touch with the Honorable Member of Parliament representing all the youth of Uganda, the National Youth MP, the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi. Good afternoon, Fiona. Can you hear me? I'm going to try again. Fiona, I can see you, but I'm yet to hear you. Good afternoon, Fiona. I want to know what's the role of policymakers in addressing these challenges that are facing our country. What more should people like Dr. Chadondo and others do? The Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi. I can see her, and I'm sure you, the viewers, can see her, but the audio sound is not.
Can you hear me now?
We'll be getting back to you as soon as our technicians are working on the audio system so that we can not only see you, but also we can hear you. At the moment, we can only see you. So allow me to come back to the audio as that is being worked on so that Sanyu, Agnes, can tell us. There could be people who would want to probably manage their reproductive health, people who would want to have fewer children in the villages, but sometimes they cannot access the methods they need to use. There's that unmet need. I can't find contraceptive pills. I can't find whatever the ladies use to control the birth. Yeah, I mean.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick. Well, why we cannot access these things is because, I'll say, because I'm a youth, we are ignorant. Most of us don't know.
The information has not been given to you.
Yeah, the information is, the services might be there, but we don't know what they do. We don't know what contraceptives do. We don't know how to use a condom. We don't know those things.
I've heard this thing called the youth-friendly corner in some of these hospitals. I thought this is where they give you information.
Yeah, the youth-friendly corners might be there, Patrick, but trust me, the doctors we find there might not be friendly. I'm going to find there. Let me, for real, Patrick, trust me, this has happened to me. I will go to a clinic and find there.
In your friendly corner?
Yeah, in my friendly corner. Let me say a 60-year counselor. Let me say. I'm giving an example. And this is a counselor I'm supposed to talk to and tell
confide
her,
in and all that.
you know, I want to start family planning. I want to start protecting myself. And she's going to look at me and I'm like, I'm 18 years old. And then what are we going to talk about? You know, there is that bridge between us.
I can imagine. But I've always wondered, why is this country trying to serve the biggest percentage of her population in a corner? Why don't you send? Yeah, why are you providing a corner to the biggest percentage? You have said the youth are the biggest population in our country. Where do you want to serve your biggest percentage of your population in a corner?
One of the reasons is the stigma that young people have. Because when they access services where their parents are getting the services from, they will not go there. So we are creating a place not very far away from the facility, but within the facility that provides the comfort to these young people to be able to go in without, fearing who is going to watch them out.
Eventually, if people see Sanyu going into this corner, then they will actually start imagining either Sanyu is looking for reproductive health methods to use, or maybe Sanyu is having a BCD, maybe Sanyu is having post-abortion kind of problems and stuff like that. Again, people will be painted because you have created a corner, and the moment they see them going there, it will not serve the purpose.
But the corner has more than just
the
services. The corner has the edutainment. The corner also offers what are the games that you play? Indoor games. The corner is supposed to be youth-friendly with more than just the service. And usually, within the corner, youth gather and they have their own peer-to-peer networks built, but also built in a way that they will be able to reach out and encourage more youth to come for information and services, depending on what their needs are.
On this issue, let me bring in Ms. Nolan Ondoro, who is the peer educator and member Richer Hand Uganda. He was also supposed to be joining us by virtual methods, in other words, on Zoom. Can I get on Mr. Ondoro, Nolan Ondoro? Can you hear me, Nolan?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Nolan Ondoro. I am a peer educator with Richer Hand Uganda and a member of the Richer Hand Uganda Advisory Board. So I've been following the discussion, and indeed it's very great. I'm very glad to take part of this discussion because I come in bring issues from a disability perspective, and especially the matters concerning access to sexual and reproductive health services for young people. And I think I would find it noble to first define disability. Disability is an outcome of interactions between a person with impairments and the barriers. And these barriers are usually attitudinal and environmental. You've been talking about the access to services, the access to SRHR services, especially in youth-friendly centers. And one of the barriers there is that these youth-friendly services or centers cannot be friendly enough if they're not disability-friendly, because people with disabilities are members of the community who ought to be included in all aspects of life, including in access to these sexual and reproductive health services. So among the barriers that affect access to these services are the communication barriers. The previous speaker talked about us having these services, yes, but you realize that we don't have sign language interpreters at these service centers, so that in itself inhibits access to youth-friendly services by people with hearing impairment, or even the service centers could be located in places that are not accessible physically for young people with physical impairments. And also the information that's at these services may not be available in Braille for those with visual impairment. And these are the barriers that are affecting.
Where we have all these affirmative action policies, where people with disability are supposed to be taken care of, where young people also are supposed to be taken care of. In fact, people with disability and young people have 10 representatives in parliament. What is their job if they cannot raise your concern to the policymakers so that policies can be changed to make life better for such a group of people?
Thank you. And I think that's the reason as why we are having this discussion. Yes, the legislators are there, but maybe they have not worked to their full capacity, because these challenges are still very evident. And the laws are there providing for disability inclusion and all this, all that, but they're not very explicit. The laws have not provided for provision of maybe sign language interpreters at all service delivery points. We have the laws that provide that all public buildings should be having ramps or maybe lifts that could enable people with physical disabilities access the buildings. But even you can walk around Kampala right now and you find that even some courts are inaccessible. So we have the rules and we have the laws and all that, but we still have a long way to go implementation wise.
To Batula Abdi. Batula Abdi is also joining us via Zoom. If you can hear me, Batula, you have had the concerns of Sanyu in the studio, but also the concern of Nolan, who is joining us virtually. I wonder, how would you respond, or what would be your submission to those issues before specifically I can put a question to you as well?
It's a great discussion. I think the colleague from SRHR Alliance has pointed out critical gaps in the sense that, yes, when we look at the national laws and policies in Uganda, we have very impressive enabling environment in terms of laws and policies, which is a very good first step in terms of protecting the rights of everybody as per the Constitution. But I think that needs to go, having laws and policies to protect the rights of people, including people with disability, is not enough. It's a first step. We need to go a first step further in terms of operationalizing that and having interventions that really address in terms of inclusion. Like she rightly said, I think she has articulated it very well. When we talk about youth-friendly services, that friendliness has to be defined. And of course, at global level and at national level, it has been defined, and we have standards. And one of the standards is, of course, making sure that it is accessible, affordable, and of quality to people. So, and when we talk about accessibility, it's for all the population, including people with disability. So I think she has articulated it very well, and we are far from the implementation-wise. I think there are gaps in terms of inclusion, making sure that young people with disability are able to get all this information that has been developed in terms of the IEC materials, either in Braille, those who have hearing disability, those who have also all forms of disability, access the right information for them to make informed choices about their bodies and their lives.
I want to look at the global stage. What are the statistics of teenage pregnancy and child marriages at the global level, so that it can give us a picture on where we stand as Uganda?
Yes, thank you very much, Patrick. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the global picture, but I think, when we talk about the statistics, sometimes we feel, sorry, there is a lot of echo. Yeah, so yes, I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, yeah. So I was saying before I go into the global statistics, because sometimes when we talk about statistics, we forget they are human beings. So I just want to quickly paint a picture. When we talk about teenage pregnancy, we imagine that girl who's 15 years old, who has got that pregnancy. It is unwanted, unplanned, and most of the time it could be as a result of marriage that is against her will. Even for women, adult women like us who have planned a pregnancy normally takes a toll on the emotional, physical, and psychological well-being of everybody. But you can imagine this girl who's 15 years old, her body is not fully formed, and she's carrying a burden that she's not prepared emotionally, psychologically, and physically. I want us to have that picture before we go into the statistics, because sometimes we are just driven by the statistics without reflecting what this means in terms of what it means for that young girl. And of course, that means a lot for her trajectory to the next level of her development. So in terms of the global statistics, we are talking about every year, an estimated 20 million girls aged 15 to 19 in developing regions get pregnant, and approximately 12 million girls give birth. And about 700,000 of those births occur for young children below the age of 15. That's just the girl I just described. In terms of complication, when we look at complication resulting from childbirth for these young girls between 15 and 19, it is the leading cause of maternal death for young people. When we talk about, for example, unsafe abortion, 3.9 million unsafe abortion, and it is contributing to maternal morbidity and mortality. And of course, adolescent mothers who are between age 15 to 19 are prone to many medical complications simply because their bodies are not yet ready like the other adults that carry pregnancy. When we look at teenage child marriage, Sub-Saharan Africa has the highest child marriage at about 35%, being married before the age of 18. And of course, the lowest level of child marriage is found in Latin America, as expected, at 24%, Middle East at 17%, and Eastern Europe at 12%. When we come back home, maybe I will also paint the picture in Uganda here. When we talk about teenage pregnancy, we are talking about 1 in every 4 girls getting pregnant. That is 25%. And I think Dr. Betty has articulated what this means for harnessing the demographic dividend. If we are having a quarter of the girls getting pregnant, and you know what that means, they're dropping out of school, it means you can paint a picture in terms of what it means for this country moving from one level of development, from a middle income, where it is to a middle income country. When we look at child marriage in Uganda also, we are at 34%. And, it's a very high percentage. And it means that these girls go into marriage where they are faced with gender-based violence, where they are at risk of teenage pregnancy, definitely, and also it means a lot for them.
About child marriage, are they getting into this marriage because they're pushed in because of poverty, circumstances, or because of culture? And by the way, there are two words here people keep using. One of them is child marriage, another one is early marriage. I wonder which should be the precise word we can use, because I don't think early marriage should be one of them. Take it from there, Abdi.
Yes, Patrick, I think you rightly said, when you say early, what is early? What is the definition of early, and how early is early? So I think according to the international standard, the preferred word and the word that is used even within the context of Uganda is child marriage, because anyone below the age of 18 is a child. And when someone marries that at that age, yes, it is an offense and it is a criminal offense. And I think that definition is very critical, because then it has policy implication and legal implication as well. So in terms of the drivers you asked of child marriage, I think there are a number of them. And I think the core of it is the gender inequality. Number one is the value we place on the girl. You know, in many societies, including here in Uganda, you will see a girl will be told to stay at home. She will not transit to the next level, married off, and her brother will continue with education. It's about that gender inequality. Of course, the other issue that is driving is the issue around poverty, like parents wanting to get bride price, or, you know, an income, or, you know, poverty from different facets, just driving making parents trying to make ends meet and seeing that the girl is another source of getting an income. So poverty is the main driver. Of course, social-cultural issues around the value of the girl and gender equality. And, you know, those norms take a while. Of course, I think Uganda is working on that, and we'll get into what works, I think, in the next level. I think those are some of the key drivers of child marriage, among others. Yes, over to you.
We learn from other countries that seem to have met these challenges and maybe gotten some solutions.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I think in terms of what works, there is global evidence in terms of what works when we look at both teenage pregnancy and child marriage, because they are intertwined, and the interventions to prevent them are quite related because of the interrelation between the two issues. First, I think, is having the right policies as a starting point, like I said earlier, having the policies that criminalizes child marriage, having policies that puts in place, you know, the Sexual Offense Act and all that, which we have, I think, even here in Uganda. But having those policies is a starting point, because you can have the policies. If they are not implemented, then they're as good as you can imagine that you can finish the sentence. So I think it's a starting point. What has worked in terms of globally is that first step, creating an enabling policy and legislative environment that protect the right of the girl and the child, and ensuring that the policies give directions in terms of the services that need to be delivered for this girl. And in terms of service, one key thing that has shown from global evidence that is working is keeping girls in school. Once you keep girls in school up to the age of 18, and in many countries, that's the time they finish high school, you will have eliminated child marriage, because above 18, she will be an adult. So keeping girls in school has a huge developmental implication, not only for the girl, but of course for the girl starting at family and also at societal level. Because if we want to harness the demographic dividend, and about 25% of the girls are dropping out of school because of teenage pregnancy, will not get there. So keeping girls in school has shown to be a very effective strategy for preventing child marriage, as well as another key thing that I would like.
The Abdi, you have been very resourceful, and I appreciate your insights on these issues that's Batula Abdi, police advisor to UNFPA, will be getting back to you. And I want to agree with you that the issue of education is key. In fact, there's a Ghanaian scholar who said, if you educate a man, you'll have educated an individual. If you educate a woman, you'll have educated a nation. Because there's a way how the benefits accrue from an empowered woman. So let's just go to Nageva Hassan Tegulwa, if we can, again on Zoom. Nageva Hassan Tegulwa, Executive Director, Restoring and Empowering Communities. Tegulwa, can you hear me? Nageva, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Following the discussion, I wonder what would be challenges faced by the young people in Uganda and the policies there available to solve some of these issues. What is missing and what should be enhanced?
Thank you so much for inviting me on this forum. And there's, from what the discussants have shared, there's a lot that has been done, but I think we need better coordination and working on all these different aspects concurrently. Because if we work to empower girls or the young people with skills and knowledge, it's not enough to prevent child marriages because we're factors. Because child marriages or school, maybe pregnancies come because of different things. There's poverty, there's ignorance, there's social pressure, there's different things. So if we want to address these issues, we need to work with all those different aspects concurrently. If you're working with young people themselves, we have to work with giving them knowledge, the skills, the information, supporting them to stay in school, supporting the family to improve their economy. For example, if it's cultural, that maybe or religious, that the parents marry off the girl because they're poor. If the mother had her own income, she wouldn't want that to happen. She would try to push for her daughter to go to school. And we've seen this happening. So to me, one of the best things is to work with different actors from different levels. We need to work with the policies, we need to work from grassroots and strengthen the horizontal and the vertical relationships to make any
It's
impact.
actually not about poverty. In some cases, it's about
maybe culture. That girls are married off when they're still children, and it's culturally acceptable. I've heard of places, I don't want to mention tribes because I don't want to sound to offend some people, where somebody is literally abducted and taken and married, and then maybe when the girl gets pregnant, they can come and report to the family of the girl and say, we are the one who took the girl, and how many cows do you want? It happens among some communities in our country. It is acceptable in some communities as a culture, and some of these communities are actually not poor. So when you want to change some of these things, you'll be burrowing deep into people's culture. Isn't that very, very, very difficult to deal with?
Thank you, Patrick. But that's what I was saying. We need to work with different actors to bring in different aspects to end all this. If it's a cultural aspect, we need to bring the cultural leaders or religious leaders or the leaders who are promoting that on board. Most times they will stick to their religious aspect, and we bring programs made in Kampala and bring for them, but there's no ownership to that. We need to put them on the drawing board from start and share information about the dangers, the effects and consequences, and have like a buy.
We're going to work on. Let's work on that. I mean, in the meantime, let's go.
Another panelist who's joining us again online. We have Hosea Tumwine from the National Representative of Restless Development at SRHR. These things directly are in your docket. Hosea, what can you tell us? For example, if I may give you a very direct question, what are the barriers to access sexual reproductive health rights and information services. Why is youth involvement and participation in the fight against child marriage and teenage pregnancy very critical in your view?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. I'm audible?
Please go ahead.
Okay, yes. Actually, the barriers to access SRHR information and services are not very technical, as most of us here may assume. I've been a peer educator in the field, and one of the biggest barriers that I've identified is fear. Fear of okutia. So people, this fear comes from the both ends. People who would be in position to provide the information and services in regards to sexual reproductive health and rights, are the parents, the religious leaders, the cultural leaders, even the teachers, and even the receivers here, the young people who would be receiving this information. There's still a very big fear because of how the society has branded the word SRHR when it comes to adolescence. There's still a wrong perception that it is initiating young people into having sex at an early age. There is a wrong perception that we are giving young people things that are contrary to the morals of the society. So you find, for example, a mother or a grandmother is uncomfortable talking about issues of child marriage, talking about issues of contraception use, talking about issues of life skills to their daughter, because they think this deprives them of their innocence. Even this daughter is fearing to ask their mother, even the teacher, about these issues, because how both these parties are thinking. So if we could, actually, and I think this comes because most people don't know what SRHR information means. Do they know that it's about giving a girl a life skill? Do they really know it's about giving younger information about decision making? They don't, for them, they think it's about purely how to have sex, which is very wrong. Actually, SRHR information is prepare this young girl to delay sex, if I may bring it that way. Secondly, yes, please. Secondly,
to engage these young people is because young people are very energetic. They are very enthusiastic. They are very innovative. When you work with young people and for example, for this symposium, and we had, if it was organized by young people themselves, but I think about maybe a month before the event, the information would be everywhere. And a month after the event, the information will still be flowing. The unfortunate bit is that this information may not exactly get to those who are most vulnerable, to those who are in, the most rural areas, and those who are in marginalized places. But I think as government, we have tried to ride on the potential through the different organizations that are working with young people. And we are very proud to say that this has helped us, move strides.
Okay. I want to try again on our technology so that perhaps we can now have the Youth MP, National Youth MP, the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi. Earlier, our sound, we were unable to hear your audio, your voice, but I suppose now we can if that issue has been sorted. You represent a very big constituency, and these are the people, they are young, they are energetic, they have a lot of potential, but they are also facing a lot of challenges. How do you avoid these challenges? How do you turn them into stepping stones? Fiona, take it from there.
Hello, Patrick. Can you hear me now? I can hear you very well. Am I better now? Hello, Patrick. Hi. Hello.
I've been following the discussion. I just want to hear your submission in this point. what would you make? You have had challenges from Sanyu, from Abdi, and Namogera, and of course Dr. Chadondo. You know what is going on. I just want to hear your submission right now, if you can hear me. Fiona, the floor is yours right now.
Can I talk?
I'm only hearing somebody else now and I'm not hearing Fiona. And I'm hearing somebody else, not in the studio, but someone where Fiona is. Okay. So now, when you encounter such challenges, you're young, you're bold, you're confident, and you're in control of your world. How come other girls probably don't have that level of confidence? Even when they find themselves maybe have a challenge like a problem that you have, but they lack that confidence. How can we give them the confidence they can walk just like Sanyu?
Thank you so much, Patrick. Well, we can give them the confidence by using the small organizations that we have around, like UNIPA, SRHR, Alliance, like Reach a Hand. Like I personally am from UNIPA, so if we could recommend such organizations to come together, or would maybe multiply them around the country to make sure that young people come and engage in these little activities that are around, or the active activities, and maybe that would push them to being confident and making them creating a better place for them, and then maybe making them better women and men in the world. Yeah, so I think we would recommend these organizations to come together, and maybe we would urge the government to multiply them and encourage them. Yeah. But
you are like kind of young positive ambassador, right?
Yes.
So you have a responsibility to move on and build that confidence among young people. I don't know whether you have what it takes, the tools, the resources, because when you're an ambassador, then it also should come with the resources so that you can create a difference. Are you facilitated enough to do your job, the ambassadorial job of being young, positive, amongst young people? I know you can just be smart and you wear a crown, but that is it.
Yeah.
How about going beyond the crown, with all respect, youth?
Well, Patrick, with my organization,
yes,
things are, we are trying to make sure that we facilitate these young people so that they make sure that they are there. But there is facilitating the young people, and then they fear to come out. We might facilitate them, but then they are arrogant about the things that they're supposed to do. Maybe they don't want to learn. Maybe they don't want to know what is taking place. You know, when somebody will hear about teenage pregnancy, they'll be like, you know, that is not me. So because they have that poor attitude towards everything, trust me, they won't come out. But if we try to make sure that everything is put on place and on board, they will eventually come in and engage in the activities.
All right.
They'll champion the cause.
Sanyu and Dr. Chadondo and my panelists on virtual platforms, and all of you who are watching this program, we're going to take a very quick break, and this broadcast will be right back. Welcome back to this special broadcast as we try to tackle issues on population, and especially the young people in Uganda and their challenges, but also the potential that they do have. We have in the studio Dr. Betty Chadondo from the National Population Council, and we also have the Rising Women 2020-2021. You can see the crown. A young positive ambassador, Sanyu, here with us. And we'll have our panelists who are joining us on virtual platforms. But let me bring in here the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi. We've been trying to get to Fiona, but technology was not giving us the opportunity. I suppose now that has been sorted. And Fiona, what is the role of policymakers in addressing this big challenge that is facing our country? What more should they do? And I'm sure you have listened to the challenges of young people from their representatives, or even what has been raised by Dr. Chadondo.
beginning to think that the internet is locked down as well. There is a lot that policymakers have to do. The central role of policymakers in curbing such a vice that we are discussing today is very, very prominent. And history has proven us over time that we are probably focusing on the wrong issue and not addressing it to the roots. Because what does it speak to us as leaders if generations and generations over time, from the backgrounds that we come from, have continuously gone through this vicious cycle of a generational problem that we are tabling today? When you talk about young girls faced with early marriages, when you talk about teenage pregnancies, when you talk about reproductive health related issues, the ideal solution would be policies and laws that would help society to implement them. But today we get to realize that that hasn't been effective enough. And the question is, where are we going wrong as leaders? What is it that we are not doing right? Perhaps we are not considering the socialization aspect much more in depth than we should. At this point in time, when we are dealing with a problem that is engulfed in socialization, that has culture, that has religion, that has fears of young people growing up, being groomed in such a society, you cannot just wake up and break it from the leaves. That we cannot just come up and say we are setting these laws and policies to curb child marriages. We have seen laws on defilement being antagonized and being used to castigate the vice further. What do you do in such a situation? It only speaks to us and reawakens us that the laws and policies would be ideal, yes, but they can only be relevant if the constitutionalism of them is streamlined in society. And that brings me back to a call that I reach out to each and everyone. It is not just a matter of policy making. It is not just a matter of what does the leader have.
Okay, looks like
we've got another challenge there, but at least we've been able to hear from you, Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi will be coming back to hear more from you. And what are some of the best practices in fighting child marriage and teenage pregnancy, Dr. Chadondo? What would be the best practices?
One, I think the best practice has already been talked about by Ms. Abdi, Batula, when she said one of the things that we need to do in this country is to keep a girl child in school.
In school.
One of our questions and concerns, every time we talk about ensure that the girl stays in school and completes at least up to secondary level education, many people will come back to us and say, what about the boy child? Every time you're talking about reproductive health, it is about the girls, it's about the women. And I even see on this panel, we seem to have only the moderator and one gentleman, Hosea, and it is really women and girls issue. So for us to ensure that we reduce this vice of teenage pregnancy and early marriages, yes, let's focus on the girl. It's the girl that gets pregnant. But two, we are not forgetting the boy or the man who is impregnating the girl. And I'll just share a very simple story. One time I was actually kind of perturbed. I had a young girl working for me. Of course, you know, we get them, you support them to a great extent. So this girl came, and after 5 months of staying in my house, she was pregnant. And I didn't know. Then she told me she had terrible abdominal pain. I took her to a gynecologist. Because of what she described, I knew that definitely there was a gynecological problem. When we got there, we did a scan, and actually I was told she had a mass in the ovary. And then I was told to repeat the scan after 2 weeks. We repeated the scan, and she was actually pregnant, 16 years. So what Batula has described, she came to work so that she can go back to school. Unfortunately, even in my house, she was vulnerable. I don't know how this happened, but we
So
lost her.
the culprit reported and crime was within. That can
I
also
don't
cause you a
know
lot
about
of
that,
can
but,
also cause you a lot of trouble.
Yes, she used to visit the sister, so probably where she went to visit is where she got, exposed.
Okay.
So not being in school is one of most dangerous things for the girls who get pregnant early. But then too, what else can we do? Just like we have said, we need to get everyone on board. Talking about the girl without the support systems does not help them. You have seen what is happening with the education now in this era of COVID. My daughter was telling me when they went back to school, some of their friends did not go back. They don't know where they are. They are concerned. So when she asked me, I said, many things could happen. Maybe they changed schools. That is number one, because it is not, probably they did not drop out, but they changed school. Number two, yes, unfortunately, maybe the parents could not afford the fees because, we had this challenge. We had the economic crisis. It was not only a health crisis, but it was everything. So maybe the parents could not afford the fees at that time, so they changed the school. Two, maybe she also dropped out completely. But then at the end, I told her, maybe she got pregnant, because it is one of the factors when parents cannot afford, then they will keep them out of school. But then what do? Let's work with everyone. The Ministry of Health has adopted a system where they are creating committees of adolescent health in the districts. We don't usually have adequate resources and we are constrained. So this initiative of creating adolescent health committees to address adolescent health issues through the Ministry of Health is in a number of districts, not in all districts across the country. But we also know there are groups of people who are building champions to champion issues of adolescents within the districts. And some of these are leaders, some are, religious leaders, some are cultural leaders, some are leaders who are technical within the districts, but some are the political leaders within the districts. Then we have our different policies that maybe you don't even want us to talk about. The sexuality education framework. This is supposed to be, it spells out very clearly different roles and responsibilities of different groups of people. But then, when it was the challenges that we had with the controversies that were raised by different groups of our leaders, and then there were delays in implementing this policy. So all these things happen, but we need them. There is no way we forget about this young person who is our leader for tomorrow. If we don't bring them on board in all the different things that we are doing, then we are leaving this country.
So we are adding almost 1 million people to our population every year. And one wonders, in terms of jobs and whatever, how many jobs are we adding? And so we seem to be digging deeper into a pit that we're not going to get out. Because if we're adding 1 million every year, and yet we are not adding the facilities and resources to help the population, we are hemmed in a certain way that we may not get out of this kind of trap, Dr. Chadondo.
That is the challenge.
Don't forget about the refugees that come everywhere, because if you add them, we are maybe adding 1.2 million people on the population of Uganda every year.
That is the challenge, Patrick, and that is the issue that we must address. And for us as a Population Council, we have developed what you have been talking about, the demographic dividend roadmap. A number one point that we need to address is reduce total fertility rate. Make sure that this total fertility rate declines, and rapidly.
I don't know whether the head of state stand on the issue of population has evolved with time, because a couple of years back, President Yoweri Museveni was very okay with a big population.
But I think for the past few years, he has been supporting issues of, you know, family planning. And he's saying it is good for the mother, it is good for the babies, it is good for families, but it is also good for the nation. Nations are not going to develop when the number of children that we have as a country cannot be supported to thrive and survive.
Okay, I hope now we are able to get to, we have our colleagues on, we have Hosea Tumwine. I really wanted, because it's Hosea we have not heard from at all. And I'm trying now to get to Hosea. And Hosea, the question I have for you, earlier we were able to see you, Hosea, but we were unable to hear your voice. What are the barriers to access HR information and services? Why is youth involvement and participation in the fight against child marriage and teenage pregnancy very critical? Hosea, take it from there.
Rachel, you can now hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank God.
Okay, thank you. My name is Hosea Tumwine, and I'm a PA educator. That's the title I love most. I will straight go to the discussion, and I will basically, based on my experience as a PA educator, and I was telling you one of the biggest barriers that I've witnessed is fear. Fear that comes from both the other side that is supposed to be giving the information, and also the fear from the young people themselves to ask this information from the people who are supposed to give it to them. And this fear arises from the perception that the society and most people have towards adolescents accessing SRHR information. They think, most of them think, this is to introduce young people to having early sex. Yet, in the actual sense, the primary purpose of SRHR information is prepare this young child to delay sex. It is also to prepare this young child who is sexually active to also enjoy their rights, but in a safer way. So parents fear to tell children this information. Religious leaders fear to tell this information because it contradicts the moral values. Yet this information is actually what these young people want. What is this information anyway, for the starters? Information about life skills, information about decision making, information about building and human development, information about leadership.
But
and
wait a moment there. There is somebody called Senga in Buganda and somebody called Koja. I thought their job was to do, give information in that respect.
What Sengas and Koja give and what they teach is how to do sex. What SRHR informs is how to delay sex and how to enjoy your right, but in a safer way.
There is another platform called Kisakate, which is supposed to give values and prepare young people to be better citizens.
And actually that's Sakate, those are culture, those are now culture. And you know very well our cultures in Uganda are different. Someone from West, we don't have Kisakate. Someone in Busoga, there's not Sakate. Sakate is in Uganda. And the information they are giving these young girls is preparing them for marriage. For us here, we don't prepare young girls for marriage. No. We prepare young girls to make informed life choices, which the society contradicts with the other thing that you're talking about. Then another barrier that I've also seen is the question of vulnerability. You see, we are here talking English. We are all speaking our good English from different schools. But trust me, there is someone who is in a fishing ground who does not even have access to a small computer or to a phone to hear this information. So the policies are good, the strategies are good, the plans are good, but they are not addressing the question of intersectionality. Young people within their ages have different vulnerabilities. There's a young girl today who is a commercial sex worker, and she's doing this because it is the situation that is forcing them. But our plans, our programs really want to look for good people who are privileged. We are leaving out the vulnerable communities. All our interventions, all our plans really should emphasize reaching out to young girls, reaching out to these adolescents who are in marginalized communities. Then why is it very important to talk about young people's involvement in this whole conversation? Like I told you, is to bridge the deficiency supply gap of information. Like I told you, parents are not comfortable talking about this. Religious leaders are not comfortable talking about this. Who is comfortable? If there is any person that is in a better position to articulate the issues of sexual adolescence, of sexual reproductive health for adolescents, it is the young person. They really know what works for them well. They really know their needs. And if we give them the capacity, they are better off than any other person to raise these issues.
So now, how do we get, so now, Jose, how do we get a lot of peer educators like yourselves to reach these young people at these landing sites and fishing villages you're talking about so that the impact can be felt? How do we reach them?
Thank you very much. I'm telling you, right now where I'm talking from, I'm in Wakiso, and this village has if you look at the structure of VHTs, they are not young people, I'm sorry to say. These are adults. We need to strengthen the approach of peer-to-peer education, but moving it away from the privileged young people. Peers should be peers who are even P7 out of school. Peers should be those people who are in landing sites. Peers should be even among those people who are sex workers. Peers should be even the young people who are doing their breaks. Can we have different peers, peer educators, not only those who are privileged? When we pick, when government or when the Ministry of Health or when the Ministry of Gender is looking out for peer educators, even the organizations, they put up adverts and people who apply, are those who are privileged. But like I told you, another thing, can we embark on empowering families and these women leaders, the women counselors, the chairpersons? Can we empower them to have safe spaces? We are all here talking about safe spaces, and all we can hear is the health centers. Can we all have this population go to the health centers? No. We must have different youth-friendly spaces within different dimensions, within different vulnerabilities. Can we have a safe space in the family? Can we have a safe space at the community level, being chaired by a counselor? I happen to work with an organization called Resilient Women in Wakiso. We have a network of women counselors who formed friendly spaces in their homes. And during lockdown, these spaces really, really worked very much. Because you see, there's a way parents trust these women counselors. So they were able to give them these children to gather at their places and give them information. We have teachers who are not even working. We brought up those teachers to come and be mentor parents. These mentor parents are happy to work with anyone. They gave us homes. We made these homes safe spaces. There are other networks of young people that cover the whole region. There's a network, I think it's called National Youth Engagement Network. Can we have networks of youth that are organized, and can government come up support such networks? We have a network of peer educators from residence development that is nowhere today. After working for 9 months in schools, there's no any support to push them, keep up their good work in schools. They want to. So can we really have an intervention that, one, having safe spaces, even away from the health centers, but in families and in communities, putting into the mind the intersectional lenses and dimensions. Two, can we move away from having peer educators who are privileged? Can we have peer educators who are not even educated? Thirdly, I think everyone needs to, the country needs to listen to this. We need to strengthen the quality of meaningful youth participation. One, in the government. Two, even in our organizations. In two ways. One, our voices. The voices of young people need to be listened to, and their views have to be even integrated within the programs. When this one is done, it is going to strengthen how this information reaches out to young people. But when we just rely on having a table for youth, Not us listening their values, their views, and integrating them into programs. The challenges are going to stay. Secondly, we need to ensure that these young people are responsible. We need to ensure that programs, we need to ensure that activities around SRHR, around child marriages, have to put into mind that young people are responsible. How? Can we have programs like how this is a very good strategy. You have a young person here who is talking on behalf of the young people. This is a good thing. But can we also have the young people who is vulnerable, who can even come here and speak Luganda? Because the people who can't even listen to this English we are all speaking here. Can we have them on this dialogue, on this symposium, also here? What are their challenges? Can we also be very confident to have young people who are vulnerable, who are marginalized? I like using the word sex workers. Because these people, we leave them outside and they want this information. We have young girls who are 15 and are being forced into prostitution because they don't have this information. They don't have a platform like this to come and talk on behalf of their categories of people, of their fellow young. Yes, please.
Jose, I want to thank you so much, Jose. You have added a lot of value to our discussion, and I want to thank you. Your points have been made. I'm sure your points have been taken. And, sometimes I also felt like what you're saying is very true, because we come in symposiums like these, in auditoriums and places like these, and talk whatever we're talking and make a lot of sense. But Dr. Chadondo, we're making sense to ourselves. That's what Jose is saying.
The World Population Day is celebrated in different formats. Because of the pandemic now and the restrictions to travel, and also because we want to observe SOPs as much as we can, we are adopting different modes of, passing on the information. And one of the modes that we have taken is to have this televised symposia. But in the past, we have had these events organized in different districts. For example, this year, these celebrations or the commemoration of the World Population Day is supposed to take place in Ntoroko. And tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, in this same platform, and around the same time, 2 to 4, correct me, Patrick, if I'm not right, we are going to have a discussion with district leaders, but also this discussion is going to bring on board young people from Toroko and Rwenzori region talking about the same issues. But we have also encouraged as much as possible the young people to tweet and use all the different channels of communication to reach out to the very different groups of young people within the Ugandan communities. So this is just one of the events, but there are many other different organized events that are going on. It is also unfortunate that schools are locked down, but we usually engage with the schools. We have competitions, and there is an essay writing. Either you write a letter or an essay if you're in school, but we also engage the youth or the young people out of school to take part in, what are these football matches, so that we have this message penetrate as many communities as possible. So we use different avenues to propagate our message on World Population Day. But I also know the Ministry of Gender, when they organize the International Youth Day, I also know the Ministry of Health organizes the Safe Motherhood Day, Contraceptive Day, and they engage different groups of the populations in Uganda.
I don't know whether the young people who are represented at almost every administrative level of our government structures have created any impact. Because if you go to a sub-county level, you'll find the youth, female and male councillor, so is at the district. And also, by the way, we have the National Youth Council that is not, partisan, that brings on all the members of the different political parties. And though we have so many political parties, also they have their national youth leagues. We have also the national youth, the MPs representing the youth. I don't know, all these platforms seem to be many. Perhaps we are unique in our country, because representation seems to be there. But maybe young people, the people who have chosen to represent you have not done a good job. Or I don't know what Fiona would say on this issue, because Fiona, you have moved through the National Youth Council, I'm told, up to now when you're the National Female Youth MP. And Hosea there is saying, look, you need to have so many peer educators at a lower level so that the information can cascade to the last youth on the ground. I wonder if we can be able to get Fiona again so that Fiona can respond, especially to the views that have been raised by Hosea, who is in Wakiso. For him, he says, yes, you have very good information. Yes, you're making a lot of sense, but it appears you're making sense to yourselves. The people who should be getting this information are not getting it. How do we get that information, get to them? It looks like I don't have that. I don't know whether all my participants on the virtual platform are still there, and if I could get Abdi to respond to what has been going on, would be a good idea. You get to hear from the UNFPA perspective. Abdi, if you can come in on this.
I think on the issue of youth and participation, it's a critical thing, but I think we have a lot of evidence showing them what meaningful youth participation is, but that has to be really defined in the sense that, yes, you can have your structures, and sometimes young people we say we have involved them, we bring them to a table to tick a box, but when we talk about meaningful youth participation, it means they're informed, engaged, and they're part of the decision making. It's a process in the sense that when they come to the table, they're able to articulate their own issues. And that doesn't come very automatic because we are not at the same wavelength with young people. Their capacity is evolving. They're still young, and we need to invest. If we want young people to be advocates for their own issues, there has to be a deliberate effort to build that capacity to articulate those issues, number one. There has to be an avenue for that involvement also, so that it is not ad hoc, so that it's not an afterthought. Oh, we are reviewing the public expenditure review. We want young people here. They come when they don't know what that is. They come and then a box is ticked. No, youth involvement and participation is a process. It has to be taken step by step, and there has to be the buy-in at all levels from government structures and also supported by development partners. UNFPA sees youth involvement as an integral part from a human rights perspective, in the sense that young people have the right to participate in issues that concern them. Also, from a demographic perspective, we are talking about a huge population in Uganda being young. So if we don't plan with them, we can't just plan for them. They have ideas. And also we see youth involvement and participation from a result perspective, in the sense that if and when we give them the opportunity, we design a program that is responsive to their needs, in the sense that our program become more effective. If you look at all the innovative ideas, it's not us adults who are coming up with those innovations, IT innovations and solutions. It's young people, but we need to create that platform. We need to foster that culture to make sure that they're involved. But before I move on, and maybe I want to just highlight one or two things in terms of what has been said by the other panelists regarding what has shown to work. I think we moved on while I did not finish. Of course, the keeping girls school is the number one thing. The other thing I want to highlight, which global evidence has shown to be working, is the issue around sexuality education, in the sense that if and when young people are given the right information, they are able to make the right decision. And I think Hosea has articulated it well. But I know there is a lot of myth and misconception around this. But, sexuality education also starts from home. And I'll give a very simple example that every mother and every father will resonate with. For example, when your 8-year-old son tells you, Baba, why is it that I have a different thing from my sister? Referring to their sexual organs. That is sexuality education, and you will give a definition that is age appropriate at that time. Depending on the context you come from, If you believe in God, you bring the God factor and say, you know, God has created us differently. Girls have this. And it is also an opportunity to educate the child and say, by the way, no one should touch that thing of yours, except mama when she's washing, and it's an opportunity. So sexuality education is not something that is very foreign, like many people think. It's not anything that it has been taught in the African culture in different ways. But now we have a scientific evidence in a very systematic manner that is age appropriate. And you know, the big question will be, what is age appropriate? And I'm very passionate about this area because it's something that I see a lot of misconception from all the community, even my own community that I come from, in the sense that Islam does not allow this. But you know, we have to define that and break it down for people to understand what is really sexuality education. It is for young people to make that decision. If the girl doesn't know how to get...
Abdi, that
yes.
has been very controversial in our country, especially when you want to, give out information. The issue of what age really, which is appropriate age, is very crucial. And I want you to stay online so that I get Dr. Chadondo to respond on the sexuality education. Then Abdi can conclude her point.
Patrick, the sexuality education framework was developed in a consultative manner, and it spells out different concerns and addresses different issues differently for different age groups. And that is why Batula is emphasizing age-appropriate sexuality education. So what is intended for 0 to 5 is different from what is intended for example, 6 to 10. What is intended for those who are already sexually active, but they are still in school. So this sexuality education framework addresses different age groups with their different, concerns. It is not a ujumla that go and talk about family planning for 0 to 5 years. No, it is very clear and was explicitly developed.
Okay, if you can continue from there, Batula, with your submission, then I'll bring in Fiona, the Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi.
That's the essence, and it is culturally sensitive. And normally, the international standards are contextualized to the local context, like in the case of Uganda. So I think I will leave the analogy I gave was age appropriate, in the sense that for that 8-year-old, you will tell them what is appropriate and why they have a different thing from their sister. And that concept now evolves as the capacity of the child evolves. So that's what we refer to as age appropriate in the sense that young people are growing, their intellectual capacity is developing, their bodies are changing. So therefore, the age appropriateness is the underlying principle. The other thing that has shown to be working, I think, and which Dr. Betty has already said, and the other panelists, is the issue around youth-friendly services and making sure that young people have services that are friendly. And I think, what does it mean to be friendly? And I think you asked a very pertinent question, Patrick. Why are we giving a small corner to a huge population? And I think the point is that that's an entry point. But what needs to be friendly actually is the system, is the health system, because that young girl with unsafe abortion can come through the casualty or the emergency care. She will not come through the corner. So what does it mean for that nurse who is receiving that girl or that young girl who is 16-year-old? So it is the health system that has to be friendly to the needs of young people. And when we say friendly, it's not just the clinical competencies of doctors and nurses. It's about the non-judgmental attitude. It's about the compassion and this definition of that friendliness, which I think Uganda also has defined from the WHO UNFPA standards. My last point in terms of what works that has been seen to be working is the community approaches. When we talk about teenage pregnancy, child marriage, we are seeing a system. We are seeing symptoms of the systems that are not working, unfortunately, because children should not be mothers. It seems there are values that are reinforcing that. There are things that are inculcating child marriage, and that has to be addressed in a culturally appropriate manner for communities to understand the value of the girls. And the change has to come from within, in the sense that the community itself has to understand why it is important to end child marriage. Why it is important for girls who are below the age of 18 not to be pregnant because they are not ready, and to give them the enabling environment for them to make that decision. So changing community norms and working with communities and champions, male, boys, girls, and ensuring that there are protective environment at the community level is critical. Of course, religious leaders are very important, cultural leaders, and also the community leaders of different cadres is critical. And working with the community and making the change coming from within has been seen to be a sustainable approach to address these issues.
Okay. Batula Abdi from UNFPA, I want to thank you so much for your submission there. You have made a lot of points there, and I'm sure they have been taken by some people and all those who are viewing this live broadcast. Let me bring in again a leader who is an MP in the House, the Honorable Nyamutoro. I understand the issue has been sorted of technology. You can hear us now. What, if I may ask a direct question, what I just wanted, what can young people do as agents of change? Honorable Nyamutoro.
Thank you, Patrick. The list of what young people can do as agents of change is endless. We cannot start and putting down exactly what young people can and cannot do. But it is important for us to emphasize that whatever they can do within their means and energies is very pivotal towards addressing this problem at hand. We are living at times whereby vulnerability has overstretched beyond defined notions. It is hard now to establish who exactly is more vulnerable than the other. And you have a situation at hand that was already defended by vulnerability. So it simply means that it has entrenched further than it has before. Young people are at the center of this all, because when we are addressing these issues, it is the young age that we are looking at. We are looking at girls who get pregnant before the age of 18. We are looking at them dropping out of school. We are looking at how this entire process and system that they go through affects sustainable development in the long run. So it is entirely important for us to emphasize and intensify the advocacy for seeing that the girl child, reproductive health systems, rights of the young people, but most importantly, educating the boy child, that at the end of the day, this is a matter that affects each and everyone in society. When you talk about 1 in 4 girls getting pregnant before the age of 20, we also need to look at the other side of the coin, that it is actually possible that the 4 girls could all be impregnated by 1 boy. And how do we address that as the leaders of this generation? I am proud of the path that we are taking. I have a lot of hope in the future. I am grateful, and I believe very many young leaders out there are grateful to different partners, to different civil society organizations and the government for the environment that we are trying to create, a conducive one that can enable everyone to thrive equally, an environment that can foster education for all of us as human beings, and also table equality on table. So that gives us the strength to carry on. So this is actually possible if we take it as our own fight as a young person. If you are a young gentleman, you are 20 years of age, what are you doing with a girlfriend of 13 years, for God's sake? For example, those are the smallest of issues that we deal with, but they actually take us back to the roots of the problem. We know that we are dealing with an issue that goes back to the smallest unit of society, handling a family, and how
the children in that family are raised. When you have young girls raising fellow children, babies that they are unprepared to nurture, you can be sure that it carries on as a linkage of a generational problem. So to my young people, we can be the agents of the change that we want to see only if we be that change ourselves. It is important that matters of the future generation cannot be broken in a twinkle of an eye, that I admit. But what blocks are we adding on as the leaders of today to ensuring that the foundation our forefathers laid can be taken higher? So I want to call upon every young person out there that matters of reproductive health are not as private as they may seem. Whenever you have any important information to share, please kind share, especially if it's useful and a health-related issue that another colleague could be going through. I want to appreciate the perspective that Hosea brought up, especially in regards of the misconceptions of sexuality. There is nothing to be shy about when we are talking about sexuality, when we are talking about reproductive health, when we're talking about menstrual-related issues. These are issues that we need to break the silence and the stigma to ensure that everyone in society, a boy, a girl, a grandmother, a father, a sister, a uncle, can be able to boldly talk about them. Peer-to-peer education might be misleading at some point because of the misinformation that goes out there. And as leaders, it is also pertinent upon us to continue carrying on the fight, because at some point when you see the statistics going on day by day, you might feel like as if there is no impact being created. No, even when we wake up to a situation whereby 1% has won the statistics that the word is out there, I believe that is wide enough for us to carry on.
So much, Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi. Sometimes I can feel the determination and the passion in your voice to try to do something and create some change. But sometimes I wonder, in a constituency that you represent, that is so huge. I mean, from West Nile, from Vura in the West Nile to Virunga at the borders with Rwanda, from Kotido at the border with Kenya, down to Kanungu at the border with the Congo. What can a Fiona Mwanafunzi, who is so passionate and determined, really do in a situation like this so that a change can happen?
That's not about the individual. So it cannot be about Fiona Mwanafunzi. I am just an amplifier of many voices, and I just stand in a figure position. But the reason is very many people. The position is linkage between what mentioned to Mbaroriang, to Masaka, to Rakai, to Langala, to Namsindwa. That is linked that we create in leadership. And at the end of the day, if share this responsibility equally, I do not get to take the credit that I put in this.
Okay.
To have a better society that we have.
All right, Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi there, the National Youth MP. We thank you so much for your time and we appreciate your insights. Our time is almost gone. I don't know whether we have Ondoro still online so that we get to hear them very, very briefly, a minute each one of them if we can. And I want to bring in here somebody who has been quiet for some time, Nolan Ondoro, peer educator. Nolan, are you still with us online? Okay, go right ahead, Nolan. What would be your concluding remark on the show tonight? I'm going to be asking all of you, our panelists on the virtual platform, to give us your concluding remark on the show, very briefly.
My concluding remarks would be: one, we should include people with disabilities in all levels of planning, service delivery. We should budget for them in the national budgets, and so that we can have an inclusive society where nobody is left behind. Then we should also, the sexuality education framework should be passed so that children its title, but we should look at it as an investment.
Okay.
Hosea talked about having evenly distributed peer educators, but if the sexuality education framework is passed, then we can have them right from school and we will not have problem of imbalances.
All right.
Then we should also invest in the health sector very much because when you realize that the government is focusing more on maternal health, more than the budget allocated to maternal health is greater than that to sexual reproductive health. This means that government is more comfortable with the aftermath of these pregnancies. How about if we invested more in the sexual reproductive services so that we can reduce?
All right, Nolan, our time is out there. I want to thank you so much, Nolan, for the time you've given us. I want to go to Nageva Hassan Tegulwa. In 1 minute, if you can, or 40 seconds, your parting shot. Nageva Hassan. Okay, it appears I don't have Hassan Tegulwa right now, and I want to hear a parting shot from Hosea, if you can.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
My last remark, I kindly request our leaders and the duty bearers, when they're designing policies or plans and strategies, do it through an intersectional lens to ensure that at least young people have access to information that is acceptable, that is available, and equitable for all the young people. Then secondly, I'd also request them at least work with the CBOs. CBOs and the local leader structures are really at the grassroots, and they can help us in addressing this issue of child marriage and teenage pregnancies. Lastly, for the young people outside there, this is our time. Use your voices. Do not allow, I don't know, but like our youth MP said, take up the space. It is our time.
All right, thank you so much. Indeed, it's your time. Okay, let me come to the studio and Sanyu, also very briefly your parting shot.
I would recommend the government to call upon these organizations that have been doing these small activities, like UNIPAR, Reach a Hand, SRH Alliance, to still engage more youth to participate into these things and have them speak out. And then lastly, I would call upon every youth to get involved, all the stakeholders to get us involved in the policy makings, because there is nothing that is there for us without us. Those policies cannot be formed if...
You're going to be talking about you without you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to be involved in them.
All right. Dr. Chadondo is listening right here. And what's your parting shot?
That is what I wanted to say, Patrick, that there is nothing for us without us as young people. And that is why for us as National Population Council, we are actually purposing ourselves as much as possible to reach out to the youth, to engage with them, to participate with them, but also to ensure that even when policies are being formulated, the youth are part and parcel of these policies, but also for their implementation. And that is the only way that this country is going to attain the demographic dividend, which Patrick loves so much. Thank you.
It's because it's a promise you're making, and I don't see we're going to
You're going to see it, Patrick.
Thank you so much. Let me also, I want to thank our participants who are joining us on Zoom. The Honorable Fiona Mwanafunzi, Batula Abdi from UNFPA, thank you so much. Nageva Hassan Tegulwa, I want to thank you. Tumuina Hosea, I want to thank you. Nolan Ondoro, and also I want to thank you, Agnes Sanyu and Dr. Betty Chadondo. But most importantly, I want to thank you, the viewers, for your great company. Good evening.